surgically attached to his head as we speak. The madness of NFL free agency has begun, and the big developing story is the quarterback situation in Pittsburgh. Within just the last half hour, Schefter, you've got significant insight. Take it away.
Greeny, let's bring you behind the steel curtain and let's have you know what's going on in Pittsburgh this morning as free agency, the negotiating window, is set to open at noon today. The Pittsburgh Steelers had been talking to Justin Fields to see if they could figure out a way to get a deal done to bring back Justin Fields as their potential starting quarterback this upcoming season. But Justin Fields has slow played the Pittsburgh Steelers because he still needs to hear what the Jets' situation is, what their offer is, which he cannot do until noon today. Now, what's interesting about this is you're seeing players across the league re-sign with their current teams. So here we have the Pittsburgh Steelers potentially offering up a starting quarterback job, and here we have Justin Fields saying, hold on, not so fast. I'm also curious to hear what the New York Jets have to say. So the Pittsburgh Steelers are waiting on Justin Fields while they're also talking to Russell Wilson, who could be back now that they've traded for DK Metcalf, and who they're also going to be speaking with, Aaron Rodgers. He has emerged as an option for the Pittsburgh Steelers in light of the fact that they can't close out a deal with Justin Fields, who seems to have some degree of interest. It's hard to quantify exactly how much in going to the New York Jets. So we're waiting for the quarterback carousel to spin. Fields could go to Pittsburgh, which would block out Rodgers and Wilson. He could go to the New York Jets, which would free up a spot in Pittsburgh for Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson. These are some of the moves that will play out today.
All right, yeah, today's going to be quarterback day, Schefter was telling me. Stay right where you are, Adam. I'm coming back to you in a second, but I just want a quick take from Orlovsky, my quarterback here, because the Steelers now have George Pickens, who is a talented, let's use the word mercurial, perhaps at times, receiver, and now they bring in DK Metcalf. So they've got studs on the outside. Right now, Dan, who do you think the Steelers' our best bet at quarterback is? Should it be Fields? Should it be Wilson? Should it be Rodgers?
None of them. It would be Sam Darnold. If I was Sam Darnold, who's going into free agency, that would be the team that I want to go to. My number one question if I was Sam was, or would be, are you keeping George Pickens? Is that going to be a dead set lock? Because the addition to DK Metcalf, while George is tremendously talented, it brings the question for me as a quarterback, are you going to have them both? If they do, if I was Sam Darnold, I would want to go there over Seattle right now unless he knows something with the additions that might happen in Seattle at wide receiver. I think the second thing is, now that DK Metcalf is there, this offense has the chance to basically sit in a I'm going to see cover two mindset all the time. If DK Metcalf and George Pickens are on the same field or on the field at the same time, teams are not going to play them one-on-one. So the run game is going to be a lot better in Pittsburgh. But if I was a quarterback or if I was Sam Darnold, I would look at Pittsburgh number one. If Sam's out of the conversation, I think it then becomes Aaron Rodgers. If I was Justin Fields, I would not want to go back to Pittsburgh.
I think that Darnold is something that the Steelers have sort of considered and I think could check in on unless he's a sure thing to Seattle. After the Geno Smith trade went down, or the news of it broke on Friday, the consensus opinion around the league was Darnold to Seattle was the most likely outcome. Now, as of last night, I had some people that were kind of trying to say, hey, wait a minute, not so fast. Seattle's still looking at maybe Rodgers, maybe Fields. But it sounds like Darnold's the likely guy to go there. So if not, then I think he becomes interesting to Pittsburgh. But I think the fact that, you're not hearing Adam talk about that, I think the fact that it's kind of been in the ether the last couple of days that Seattle's the most likely destination for Darnold indicates that's the case.
I'll go back to Schefter in a second, but let me come over here to Tedy, because you were making the point, and you know everything about leadership and all that sort of thing. You have some concerns if they have those mercurial receivers about who the quarterback is.
The skill is obvious. The ability is obvious, like Dan's talking about. To have them both would be tremendous if you're a quarterback. But what quarterback can handle them? Because there's going to be a point in time over the course of the year, probably many times, meetings, things we don't even see, locker room, sideline we see. But in terms of keeping talent very exceptional talent with strong emotional feelings, okay? These two players, DK Metcalf, George Pickens, who's the best quarterback to do that? That's what Pittsburgh has to consider. And first of all, do the receivers look at their quarterback and know, that's my guy, I respect this guy because of what he's done in the past. So managing them, who's the best, it may be Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion.
And to me, this puts a ribbon on really what was a transformational move over the weekend. Bill Barnwell wrote it last night, which is not since Jerome Bettis has the Steelers gone outside the organization for such an impact of player in DK Metcalf. So to me, if you're getting DK Metcalf and you have Pickens guys, no team has two corners that can defend these guys, as Dan just alluded to. So to me, Aaron Rodgers paired with this DK Metcalf trade makes sense, Greeny. And then to me, ironically, they're sitting there at 21 in the draft, very similar to where they drafted Kenny Pickett. So is Aaron Rodgers the Band-Aid at 42 years old, which he'll be in December? And then do they draft his eventual replacement?
I think Dan also alluded to this, right? Like Pickens is not a sure thing to be there. Like he's extension eligible, and they're just going to extend DK Metcalf. Is that going to mean George Pickens wants money too, or wants to be somewhere else, and therefore could end up being?
I would love to see them both together. How that's managed with Mike Tomlin and whoever the quarterback is would be fascinating.
Orlovsky, quickly go.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge part of the conversation, the Pickens piece. Is he staying? Here's the reality for Pittsburgh. They got to be urgent with this decision at quarterback. They cannot sit and wait. You are chasing guys in your division at that position that are absolutely remarkable. And if you tell that quarterback, hey, we've got DK Metcalf and we are absolutely keeping George Pickens, this is now a place that the top quarterbacks want to go. But Pittsburgh can't wait. There's only so many options. You can't sit back and slow play this, because the quarterback's going to go, well, I'll go to Seattle. And then what happens if Aaron Rodgers goes, you know what, I'm just going to go to the Giants. I want to stay local.
And as Adam said, he wants to hear from other teams. Rodgers, I think, will wait. I think he knows the Giants are there for him if he wants to go there, but I think he'd rather go somewhere probably better, frankly. And I think if he thinks the Steelers are an option, he would wait until that's filled, I think, before saying yes to the Giants.
Brady, I'm just laughing at Dano's point. I mean, this is why GMs have, more weight and less hair, which is you are on the phone with DK Metcalf, and you're not paying him $30 million a year to have a question mark at quarterback.
Right.
Trust me, you're having those conversations at the exact same time.
You also made the point this morning that the general manager about the GM in Seattle trading away Geno Smith. Make that point quickly.
Yeah, 1,000%. John Schneider's too smart and too talented. You're not taking a quality quarterback under contract and indiscriminately just trading him for hope. That Sam Darnold, I know we're a couple of hours away, but I would be floored if Sam Darnold today isn't a Seahawk. He was coached by Clint Kubiak in San Francisco. It all lines up. They're too smart not to have a quarterback.
To your point, he wouldn't have traded Geno without knowing what he's got. All right, Schefter, back to you. Obviously, you're hearing all this getting thrown around here. Jump back in here. Obviously, the Rodgers piece to the Steelers is fascinating to me. Keep going.
Well, and it's fascinating in part to you, but it's also fascinating to the people in New York, because if the Steelers then go with Aaron Rodgers and make that decision, that frees up Justin Fields for the Jets. And if Aaron Rodgers goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers, that complicates the New York Giants quarterback decision, because Aaron Rodgers is in play with the New York Giants along with Russell Wilson, Jimmy Garoppolo, others. We'll see what the Giants do. And so all these teams right now are all waiting on each of these various moves, and one move will lead into another. How about, again, we talked last week, Aaron Rodgers, Minnesota. Not likely, Greeny, but not out of the question either, depending on these other situations. Daniel Jones is thinking about going to Indianapolis and Minnesota. Those seem to be his two biggest options. The Colts would like to have Daniel Jones. If they get Daniel Jones done, and if Sam Darnold leaves Minnesota, which is expected, then there's no Darnold, there's no Daniel Jones. The Vikings then now need another quarterback to challenge and work with J.J. McCarthy. So Aaron Rodgers could come into play there. I would be surprised. I think Aaron Rodgers' options right now seem to be on the East Coast with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New York Giants. Justin Fields, the New York Jets, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. You could see how one thing leads into another and how one move also influences and impacts another.
Let me make very clear here, Schefter, for those who are watching, just on the urgency of this. We should be expecting the first of these dominoes to fall any time now, right? I mean, this is not something that's going to last into tomorrow or Wednesday, is the expectation here.
Teams can begin negotiating at noon today. I would think that at some point later today, this afternoon, quarterback dominoes will absolutely start falling.
Okay, Orlovsky, go.
The number one place right now for a starting quarterback job in that league that is open is the Pittsburgh Steelers since they acquired DK Metcalf. So if I'm Aaron Rodgers, if I'm Sam Darnold, that's the place that I want to go to. If they are going to keep George Pickens, I understand Clint Kubiak's in Seattle and Sam Darnold has a past with him. That is a very different football team.
I told you for the segment.
Very
Keep going.
football
That's
team.
Schefter on the phone. Keep going.
Yeah, very different football team offensively than they were 48 hours ago. So the Steelers have now become the destination spot for a starting quarterback for me.
You agree with that, Tedy?
There is already, I mean, I understand legal tampering and I understand when it's really, really done, but this is the quarterback position we're talking about. These already, I think Seattle, things like that, when you, listen.
What are you trying to say?
They tell you one thing, but what they do is another. It's the NFL truth, I call it. It's what they do, not what they say. Seattle has a plan. It feels like Sam Darnold because they're just not stupid enough to trade away their quarterback and their receiver and to say, you know what, let's see if we can get this guy now. Let's see if we can get that. No, these moves were made because it was already in place.
And to that point, Dano, here's where I would push back. They probably talked to him about Smith and Jigba. He's our future. We're going to move on from Lockett. We're going to move on from DK, and we're going to draft a skilled player in the first round. So I'm sure Sam Darnold is very comfortable with the plan longer term in Seattle. Again,
it's not legal for them to have talked to Sam Darnold yet.
Hypothetically, right.
But let's cut through that. Everyone is tap dancing around saying something. I've got a general manager sitting here.
Right.
These conversations are taking place.
1,000%. Again, Seattle runs a good ship. They are not giving away a quarterback without having a plan in place. That plan, presumptively, is going to be Sam Darnold, who we all believe will sign today. If not, they would not have traded Geno Smith. But they made a decision that, hey, we went to Geno Smith with an extension. That number was X. We'd rather have Sam Darnold at this price with a third-round pick. That sounds like good business. Now, I understand, Dan, sitting here on March 10th at 8:50 in the morning, George Pickens and DK Metcalf looks a lot better than Smith and Jigba and a question mark. But when you're recruiting a player like we have, you say, hey, here's the group of players that we're looking at. It's going to be a skilled player in the first round, whatever it may be.
Yeah. And Smith and Jigba is good.
He's a stud.
I mean,
Smith and Jigba is a stud.
You want to roll the dice on the linebacker position or something like that. I mean, you don't do this.
Right.
You don't do it with quarterbacks.
And that's a linebacker saying.
I'm just saying, it's reality. It's reality. If I'm on the team, I don't want you messing around. Make sure we got somebody coming in, coach.
Do you agree with Dan Orlovsky's point that right now, if you're a quarterback with all the options in the world, listen, we're not exactly, the people we're talking about here are not Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, right? We're not.
Correct.
We don't have that.
Those guys don't hit the market.
But the guys who are on the market are the guys who are on the market. If you're the one who has the most options, is Pittsburgh the best choice?
Does Minnesota feel strongly about J.J. McCarthy?
Okay,
I mean, is that your starter? I mean, can you say, I can come in and start for you and throw to Justin Jefferson and Addison and have all these weapons with me there, a great head coach and offensive play caller? Are you committed to him? If you are, all right, then, yes, I got to move to Pittsburgh.
I like that. But the point is, if you think you have a real shot at having the starting job in Minnesota, that's the spot that you want to go.
It's Pittsburgh. Minnesota, yes, but he's going to be too expensive for Minnesota. Okay, now that the Geno Smith trade happened, he's going to be too expensive. It's Pittsburgh, it's not even close. You know how difficult it's going to be for a quarterback to go from J.J. and Addison and Hawkinson and that offensive line and that play scheme to go to, and JSN's awesome. Jackson Smith and Jigba's awesome, but he's not those guys yet. Instead, you could go to Pittsburgh, and that offensive line needs to get better. There's no doubt. But you have Pickens and you have DK Metcalf to throw the ball to, on top of Pat Freiermuth, who's a really good tight end. This isn't close. The destination that is the best place for a quarterback to go to right now, overnight became the Pittsburgh Steelers, as long as they keep George Pickens.
Sometimes for players, being comfortable is more important than the best situation. Okay, and with Sam Darnold and knowing, I mean, he's got coaches at every level that know him all the way from college. I think the strength coach was at USC when he was there. But sometimes that's more important, rather the quarterback thinking, I will make it work, rather than, man, we got two great receivers over there in a great situation. It would be much harder for him, much more work to deal with these two receivers. He would be much more comfortable in Seattle.
Seattle's a lot better right now at running back. Seattle's going to be active in free agency on the offensive line. Seattle, as a result of the trades they made this weekend, have 5 of the first 92 picks in the NFL draft. Seattle's in good shape to get better quickly.
Greedy, here's what's fascinating to me. The Pittsburgh Steelers has transformed themselves literally overnight. For weeks we've been seeing here,
Yes.
Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, they're a 9-win team, one and done. Look what they're doing. If they come out of this with DK Metcalf and Aaron Rodgers, give them a ton of credit. They're saying they weren't good enough. They got a Hall of Fame coach. I think it's more fascinating than anything else that we've seen over the last 48 hours.
Schefter, get back in here.
Well, we don't know who the Steelers quarterback is going to be. And that really remains the question. It gets us back to where we started the segment because we're talking about all these quarterbacks. If Justin Fields was so intent upon being in Pittsburgh, Mike, if you had a player as the former general manager of the Jets and you were trying to re-sign him and he wasn't re-signing and he wanted to talk to another team when the market opened, would you be concerned about his chances of staying?
Yeah, I'm on the phone with Aaron Rodgers, and I'm not getting off. I'm assuming that Justin Fields has moved on. I've been in that situation plenty of times. When you're actively engaged with retaining your own and you hear, hey, we want to explore options, it's the old Coach Parcells. You're looking, we're looking, so everyone's looking, so all bets are off. And there's no doubt in my mind, if I'm the Steelers and we don't have, look, we've seen, Adam, you've reported a gazillion deals over the last couple of days. The fact that Fields isn't signed tells me everything I need to know, which it's likely he is gone.
I wouldn't say likely. I think it's in
will
question. I think it's in question. And what I don't know is whether he's leveraging the Steelers against the Jets or the Jets against the Steelers. But here's the bottom line. I would think that Pittsburgh's made a fair offer by now. If he wanted to be there, he could take them. But let's not forget, last year, Pittsburgh did bench Justin Fields. And so as much as it wants to keep him now, it benched him last year. And now we've got a new regime in New York, and they're probably saying to him, and we'll be saying to him, look, come be our guy here with the Jets. This is going to be your offense. We want you here. That team benched you. And so there's some questions here. Justin Fields might go back to Pittsburgh, but the fact that he hasn't taken their deal has raised a number of other options. And as Mike said, everyone's looking right now.
I think it's great. Justin Fields basically is saying, yes, I took it all personal. I remember what you did. Yeah, I can play good soldier when I have to, but now when a player is doing things to where I want to enter free agency and do that, you're telling the organization and the team that I do not want to be there. There are other things out there that, and I remember what you did. Players take things personal.
Graziano, there are three words that I've barely heard in this conversation, and they are New York Giants.
Yeah.
What?
I think the New York Giants, as Adam alluded to, I think are hoping that Aaron Rodgers will be, an option for them.
We'll have no other choice but to go there.
Well, again, like if Seattle or Minnesota or Pittsburgh is interested in Aaron Rodgers, I think he would prefer those over the Giants. If not, I think he knows the Giants are a possibility for him, and he may well end up there.
Greedy, the old axiom, hope is not a strategy. That win against the Colts may be the most costly win.
The Giants are in trouble. I mean, like they could end up. The Giants and Russell Wilson could end up being stuck with each other because neither one has any other options.
Schefter, put a ribbon on this part of the conversation.
Again, I think Pittsburgh seems to be the first quarterback domino here. The Giants are waiting to see what Pittsburgh does. Aaron Rodgers looms large. Justin Fields looms large. We're waiting on a couple of different quarterbacks. Daniel Jones is on the periphery. And by the way, there are some other quarterbacks. We see the Atlanta Falcons continuing to squat on Kirk Cousins and refusing to deal as those two sides are engaged in a game of chicken in which people across the league don't believe Kirk Cousins won't ever play there again, but the Falcons refuse to move on. Jimmy Garoppolo's out there. Other quarterbacks, Marcus Mariota. Quarterbacks are going to be the headliners today, Greeny.
Yeah, squat on him is a really interesting choice of words, by the way, but I like it.